she approaches me and says, hey, we're working on this youth event at this church, right? And we're looking for a keynote speaker. And I believe we found the keynote speaker. I'm like, oh, really? Who you got? She's like, you. And I'm like, no, I can't speak in no church, man. I may go up there and say something I ain't got no business saying, right?
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast, where we bring you insight and guidance from successful Black professionals. My name is Selvin, and as always, we appreciate the support. So today we are bringing on David Gibson to the show. He is a motivational speaker. He has a lot of inspiration, a lot of different things that he wants to bring to different organizations, different people. So we're gonna get into how he got into the space where he's at, because you don't really go to school for being a motivational speaker. So we're going to kind of see what that looks like and what all of his experiences have brought to him today. So David, what's going on?
Selvin, it's a great pleasure, brother. Glad to be on here, man. Looking forward to the conversation we're going to have.
Absolutely. So let's start with just, giving you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the people by answering, who is David Gibson?
That's a packed question, but in a nutshell, David Gibson, a husband, father, man of God, a inspiration, coach, speaker, author, entrepreneur. But in a nutshell, I am an individual that is looking to do extraordinary things. And what I mean by extraordinary things is committing myself to growth, development, and improvement, and then encouraging as many people as possible to take that same commitment. I'm very big on assisting individuals and becoming individuals of value. So I'm a firm believer that as we become more valuable, we'll have more opportunities in life. And I know everybody has a goal and a dream, but I also recognize everybody has a purpose. And with the work that I do, I want to help guide individuals toward that purpose so they can live an impactful and successful life. And I do that through, of course, my business. Elevation is a must. We'll dive into that, of course, keynote speaking and workshops and throwing events. That's a part of that, as well as coaching programs. I have a daily broadcast that I host as well, where I have a community of individuals that are determined to become the best version of themselves. So in a nutshell, David Dwayne Gibson, that's who I am. I'm focused on helping individuals become the best version of who they are.
Perfect. Thank you for that thorough introduction. So where did this all begin, when it came to trying to help others? Did this start when you were a kid? Did this start as you got older and started to develop on your own? How did this kind of, cultivate together?
This really developed. I know you have a lot of college students that tune into this podcast, but it really sparked within me when I was in college myself. Of course, you're in that stage where you're looking to discover who you are. You're exploring different gifts and talents that you feel that you may possess. And to be honest with yourself, and it was something that I just fell into because many of the lessons that I learned from my personal struggles, all I did was just started sharing them with people that I was connected to. And I started to notice that people would listen because I found it difficult for me to put a smile on my face, to feel like I had a sense of purpose, to be motivated, to be inspired, to do something. I had that lack of purpose, so to speak, that really kind of kept me feeling stuck in life. And once I started to experience my own personal breakthroughs, I just started sharing, the insights that I was receiving from those experiences. And then I started to notice that I wasn't the only one that was dealing with these challenges, right? Everybody's going through something. And I'm a firm believer that the things that we go through, we're supposed to grow through. The things that we face are there to be used as a tool for us to evolve, for us to discover more of our capabilities, our God-given gifts and talents, and ultimately our true potential. And in a nutshell, what brought me to where I am now was really just sharing insights. And then I started to become invited to speak at different events. And then one event led to another, which led to another. And then from that, momentum that was built, I thought about it and said, hey, I can create a business plan and do this full time.
Nice. Were you always willing to share your stories, or did it take those different breakthroughs to kind of get to that point, or even before then, were you always like not optimist, but more of an extroverted person? Were you, always kind of like energized by people, or were you the exact opposite? And then, how did that, roll into those breakthroughs?
Completely introverted, even still to this day. In fact, many of my speaking friends, people often think that when you're on stage, this person's just, they love the energy out there and they're connected with everybody, they're extroverted. And that's not necessarily the case with everyone, including myself. I grew up very quiet and reserved, stayed to myself for the most part. But what happens is when you start to develop a passion for something, you step out the way, right? It's not about you. It's not about me when I'm on that stage. It's more about how I can serve, how I can offer value to others. And that's what speaks. That's what communicates to others. So in order for me to get over that, I had to conquer that thing that we call fear. That elusive thing that often echoes in our subconscious, that thing that often tells us we're not good enough, that voice that often tells us that we're not going to make it, nothing amazing can come of this. That's the voice of fear. And I had to identify that voice. And once I began to identify that voice, I became powerful. Like once you start identifying the things that often happen undetected and unnoticed within your mind, you now have the power in your hand. And I made the decision, I'm going to allow my passion to become greater than my fear. And once that happens, fear becomes irrelevant. You step into your element and you're not thinking about messing up or making a mistake or what other people will think. It's more about how can I serve others? And I'm doing this with my heart. And once that kicked in, I started connecting with people like I never had before.
Yeah. I think, when we're all in a position where we're trying to hide those different fears and different things that, we might think are holding us back or that people are going to judge us for, that leaves us, closed off and not wanting to be able to share those different experiences. So, talk about the time when you really first connected with somebody, once you got into a point where you're feeling empowered because you have, started to conquer these fears and now you're sharing this. Talk about that first time where you actually kind of shared one of those experiences and it really connected and you saw that connection happening.
It was really actually the very first time that I was actually invited to speak, to deliver a keynote, and talking about that conversation of fear. The night before, so I'll rewind, Selvin, to kind of give us context of the story. My uncle passed away, and this was in 2013. And again, I grew up quiet and reserved, didn't necessarily speak out much, really just stayed to myself. But I was very close to my uncle, and I felt obligated to speak at his funeral because he died abruptly. It really hit our family hard. And we were going through a tough time. And I wanted to encourage my family for us to stay focused and to keep moving forward, understand that God has a purpose behind everything that takes place in life. So I spoke at the funeral and just poured out my heart, didn't have any notes. I'm just sharing insights and then didn't think anything of it. But after the funeral, I had multiple people that came up to me and said, David, that really touched me. Your words really resonated with me. How you phrased different statements and packaged your message, that really connected with me. And one of those individuals that was at the funeral was actually a friend of my family. And if you know this young lady, she has the type of personality that she doesn't accept no for an answer. She approaches me and says, hey, we're working on this youth event at this church, right? And we're looking for a keynote speaker. And I believe we found the keynote speaker. I'm like, oh, really? Who you got? She's like, you. And I'm like, no, I can't speak in no church, man. I may go up there and say something I ain't got no business saying, right? And again, she has this personality where she wasn't taking no for an answer. So I was coerced into taking this role of being the keynote speaker at this event. This was in November. The event was the next year in April. Of course, I got time to just throw it on the back burner, wasn't thinking anything of it. The night before, Selvin, listen, I'm literally at war with fear. I'm like, okay, now I can't run from it. I can't avoid it. This thing is on tomorrow. There's going to be hundreds of people here. I'm going to be on the stage, and every ear that will be in that room will be listening to my voice.
Yeah.
I will have their undivided attention. Talk about the imposter syndrome that I was dealing with, bro. I mean, the insecurity, the inferiority thought process that was going through my mind, me feeling as if I'm going to stumble on my words. I'm going to embarrass myself. What I have to say has no value. Like all of this is going through my head, literally having like this panic attack. Pacing my apartment floor. I got 2 dogs. They looking at me sideways like, yo, what's wrong with bruh? And what happened in that moment was I stood still and I began to reflect on what I was thinking. And I made the conscious and the executive decision to change the narrative in my mind. That went from anxiety to bona fide confidence, fear to passion. Like I really couldn't sleep that night, but the sleep that I did get, I woke up the next morning and I had an aura of confidence. I stood on stage and poured my heart out. People said, man, how long have you been doing this? I said, man, this is my first keynote. They said, man, you sound or you look like you've been doing it for years. And I had the same result. People coming up to me saying, you know what, David, those words really resonated with me. And what I realized was this, and listen clearly to all of the listeners that are tuning into this. What took place was I experienced a personal breakthrough. And because I experienced that personal breakthrough, the people that were on the receiving end, the people that were just under the sound of my voice benefited from my personal breakthrough. And everybody deals with fear, particularly as often in the areas that you're gifted, that you're talented, and you have unique abilities, right? When you experience a personal breakthrough and you step into your personal power and you mix divine power with that, that's what's going to inspire others. And I started to notice everything that I experience is for me to share, to empower, to encourage, to inspire someone else so they too can shine their light. They may not be a keynote speaker. They may not be an entrepreneur. They may be an intern at this particular company that they're looking to grow and scale in. They may have an idea to be a chef, a photographer. They may want to be a social media manager, whatever the case may be. They have something special within them. You have to overcome your personal struggles and your challenges, step into that. And that's when you're going to shine in whatever field that you're looking to shine in.
Yeah. So you really embraced that moment, that night before the first keynote. And that's when it kind of, you unlocked that cheat code when you did that, you, as opposed to kind of, straying away from it, and again, you had all this time, right? You had all this time, and it was that, maybe 24 hours before is when it all kind of happened, the fear, the embracing of the fear, and then the breakthrough. And I love that you pointed out that you found this in something that you're naturally gifted in, something that you're talented in. And it's going to be good for the listeners to hear that some of those fears might be in the midst of those things that you're trying to get good at, trying to perfect, trying to help them with, pushing towards their careers. So I'm glad that you pointed out, because it can be applicable. Like you said, they could be the intern, they could be, understudying the chef, they could be doing all these other things. And it's right there in front of them to kind of get over that hump. So, and this was after college for you, was it?
Yeah, this was, I graduated from college in 2012, and like that whole year and a half, it's like, what do I do now? Like I'm like many college students. Okay, I've got my degree, and it's like, okay, now what's my next move? Left, right, up, down, east, west, north, south. You're trying to figure out what direction you're going to go and find like that life compass of where you're supposed to be. And for those that may find themselves in that position, I just suggest, just explore the possibilities, right? And the best way to explore possibilities is to break the rules of your thinking. Like if you want to explore new and exciting possibilities in the world in which we live, you have to break the rules of your historical thoughts. Stop placing limits on yourself. Stop telling yourself you can't do something. Just because you've never tried it doesn't mean that you can't do it. I just started exploring different ideas, and I was listening to my intuition. Like literally, Selvin, when I got the idea and the concept and the notion to become a professional speaker, I laughed out loud. Like I'm working at this job. I had been working for this organization for about 9 years as I was going through college. I'm working there and I'm sitting on these like cabinets, And I remember it like it was yesterday. God spoke to me and said, David, I want you to travel the world and encourage individuals to live out their dreams. I'm like, yo, I can't even encourage myself. What do you mean?
Uh-huh.
but it was the awareness, right, of hearing that intuition. Intuition is often the memory of truth, where you're listening to yourself and you're like, maybe there's something here. Now, of course, it took some time for that seed to be sprouted out of the soil. That was a seed that was planted within my consciousness, within my mind, within my spirit. It took a while. I'm talking like a year and a half for that seed to begin to manifest and bear fruit, but it was planted in that moment. And I was willing to accept it and embrace it.
Nice. When it comes to just, the elevation as a must, as you're starting to kind of figure out that this is something that you can do, what was this kind of like a twofold question? What was that process like, kind of getting all the business side, together with this passion that you have, this thing that you've unlocked, that you've discovered for yourself? What was the journey like with that? And then what was the balance like with, kind of learning the business side, and maybe this is something that you studied and you had a good idea of it, and now this newfound talent, and newfound as in it's always been in you and you've just figured out how to manipulate it, but how do you balance those two aspects?
To answer your first question, I'll answer by saying this: it's never ending, right? Like coming up with a business plan, even to this day. In order for you to continue to scale and evolve and to make a deeper impact, you got to be innovative. You have to be, leading in what it is that you're aiming to lead and what you're aiming to accomplish. So that requires you to constantly research on different strategies and different approaches from a business perspective. Like, what are ways that I can add value? And what are people willing to pay for? There's keynote speaking, there's coaching, whether that's group coaching, one-on-one, there's live events, there's workshops, there's retreats, there's different options that you can have. So it's a matter of, I guess, to answer your second question in with the first one, start researching those individuals that are doing the things that are similar to what you want to do. I started reaching out to people that are in this field to get better insight, because success leaves clues, right? You find someone that's doing the thing that you want to do and then ask them, how did they do it? Like, that's the easiest way to figure things out. You just reverse engineer somebody else's process that's doing it, and they're doing it at a great level. So it was more so just having the open mind to say, I'm going to learn something new. I don't understand it, but who does? Let me reach out to them, what worked for them, and then let me find what works for me. I'll try this, I'll try that. This may work, this may not work. I may not be passionate about doing this, right? I may not be passionate about doing workshops, but I'd like to do a keynote. I may not be passionate about speaking at someone else's event, but I can host my own events where I can have full control of the live experience. You won't reach that realization and understanding until you just experiment and try different things.
Okay. Who was the first person that you reached out to?
A couple guys here locally here in Indianapolis that I reached out to, and then also just some other entrepreneurs. That's another thing that I would also suggest. Maybe it's someone that's not even in your industry, but just get an insight on how business is run and operated, right? Get an insight on how people are creating value, and then maybe you can incorporate a little bit of their system into what you're doing. It may be a different field, but just getting insight on, hey, this is what I do for my consumers, my clients, my customers, the people that I serve. Maybe you can incorporate this into your business, right?
Yeah. It's funny that you might even find those really inspirational tips of advice from somebody who's not even doing what you're doing, because you're getting a different perspective from them.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to have that mix of those who are kind of doing the work, so they can really give you really direct information, and then ones that aren't, where they can give you something practical, something that can be a parallel to what you're trying to achieve. When it comes to, as you were going through this, now I think one of the things that you do is, kind of help, like you said, help people become a better version of themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as you were kind of going through this, maybe you've run into situations where you are seeking an opportunity and it you're starting to get red flags as you're kind of going through and trying to figure out if it's going to be something that you want to do. Now, you in this position, maybe you were in a space where you can kind of really rely on that moral compass and try to figure out how to, navigate through it. Maybe your intuition is really strong. Now, what about someone who hasn't maybe fully believed in their own intuition and they're running into a situation like that, whether it be for business, for school, social interactions? What would you say to them in terms of trying to maneuver through that type of situation?
I say the first step is clarity, gain clarity. And what I mean by clarity is, knowing who you are and what you're aiming to accomplish. And that may take some time. It may take some time for you to reach that understanding, but it's well worth time that you want to invest, because I've made some mistakes as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as a business owner, just as a man, just not having clarity of who I am and where I want to go and the things that I really want to accomplish. And if you're not clear on it, then what happens is you place yourself in a vulnerable position to waste time, to be taken advantage of, to miss out on opportunities that are aligned with what you really want. And all of that can be avoided if you just take time out to say, you know what, this is what I want to represent. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. To give an example of that, starting off, of course, a little bit on my story, I was laid off in 2013 at the job that I mentioned earlier. And I made up my mind at that point that I was no longer going to do things that didn't express my heart. So from there, that's where I mustered up the courage to start my own business, to become a professional speaker. So, of course, at that time, that's my bread and butter. I've got to figure out a way to keep myself indoors and pay the bills and handle my responsibilities. And a part of that puts you in a position where you are willing to just take on anything that may not necessarily be in alignment with what you really want to do. But because I hadn't taken the time to get clear on, this is what I want to represent, this is the message that I speak, this is who I speak to, I was taking any and everything, learning from it. Of course, these are all learning experiences, but bumped my head. And of course, it made me better as a person, made me better as a man, and helped me understand more about the process of just becoming who you truly were created to be.
Perfect. I like the fact that you pointed out, learning through a process. You don't know, especially if you don't have access to like mentors or just anybody kind of doing the same thing that you're doing. You are pulling from those experiences as opposed to these being things that are setting you back. They're kind of pushing you forward because you're learning from those experiences. So I like how you pointed that out. One thing I wanted you to talk about is kind of the if you felt like you had to develop any skills, while you're trying to, put this package together of elevation is a must. What things did you feel like you worked on? Which things did you feel like you identified? Okay, these are good, but I can sharpen them a little bit here. And then what other things did you find that you had no experience in? I got to put some more effort into these compared to those other things.
Well, of course, the practical aspects of being a communicator, a speaker, working on your voice, working on your delivery, working on your hand and body language, working on your message as a whole, right? Those, of course, are the practical aspects of them, which are very important. Storytelling, being able to package a story in a way that people can resonate and connect with, leaving principles in those stories. And that's what people remember. Stories, they create feelings. So having that skill set, but most importantly, of course, the practical aspects of them are extremely important. But what I will say is the most important is giving yourself permission to be you, being vulnerable. More importantly, authentic, right? That's what people connect with, authenticity. And you can't be authentic with others until you first are authentic with yourself. So giving yourself permission just to be you, no matter how weird it may sound or quirky it may look, or compared to what other people may think, you be you, right? If you want to talk about, your experience with playing PlayStation and connecting with people online and building relationships and networking in that regard, then do that. If you want to talk about your love for cards or your love for, whatever that passion that you have, find a way to use it in a way that benefits and serves others. But most importantly, you be you. Like, don't try to be me. Don't try to be another speaker. Don't try to be the best speaker that's out there. Be the best you. Because as you become the best you, you're going to attract the tribe of people that God has created you to impact, that circle of influence that you have been designated to touch. You're going to start attracting those individuals. My life changed, my business changed, Selvin. The moment that I made the decision, I'm just going to be me. And me is enough, right? A lot of times we look at ourselves and we feel as if I'm not enough. I don't have what it takes. I got to look like this person. It doesn't look like this person's journey, so it doesn't measure up. No, just because it doesn't look like that person's journey doesn't mean that it's not great. You don't have to be perfect to be amazing. You just have to be you. So that would be, I guess, the most important tip that I would give somebody. Authenticity. You be you.
Yeah. And I think, especially when you don't see something kind of packaged to like something that you've normally seen, and especially when you're equating it to yourself. And, I think everybody has something unique about them that they might not even be able to see in anybody else. And, I love how you say say to not be afraid to embrace that, because that might just be a completely new lane that you're creating with whatever you're doing, because you have that unique piece of yourself that you're putting into it. And it's not hard to keep that up. It might be hard to say so-and-so on a resume and, just to get the job, but now you got to keep this up. And now it's more effort. Now you're putting more of that into that, as opposed to, hopefully enjoying the job, enjoying the environment, enjoying the impact that you're having on people or the world around you. So I definitely love that advice. Anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah. And just to extend on what you're saying, when you do that, you just put unnecessary pressure on yourself, because I could never be Selvin. In the same way that you can never be me, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it. Like, you are you, and that's what makes you amazing. You have a category of gifts and talents and experiences that make up who you are. And you're going to connect with people that I can never connect with, Even though I'm an amazing speaker, I can't connect with other people, with everybody out there. There's somebody out there for someone, but I can't be mad because I can't be like this person or stand in this person's shoes. I have to be willing to embrace and love the shoes that I am in, because these are the shoes that take me in the lane that I'm supposed to, I'm designated and destined to be in.
Perfect. Now, to make a segue into, kind of the world that we're living in, the way that you're able to connect with people, since things are kind of uncovering in America, the world that we live in and everything, how important is this work that you do as a Black man? What is it that, if there's anything, special that you put into your work when it comes to trying to improve the lives of people of color, what would you say that is, or has it always been kind of embedded in your brand? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's embedded in my brand, but essentially it's really to inspire and to convict our community to always strive for more. I'm a firm believer that the moment of the day that we stop striving for more, we start accepting less. And it's a matter of us understanding that there's more out there, right? What often happens is you can't be it if you can't see it. And we get so stuck in our environments. We get so stuck in our pain. We get so stuck in our past. We get so stuck in our problems that it's hard to visualize possibilities. So when I step on stage, when I'm creating content, when I'm connecting with others, that's something I'm very big on. Open your mind to new possibilities. Look beyond your zip code. Look beyond even your state. Look beyond your current predicament and understand life can and will be better. But it starts with you. It starts with your mindset. It starts with you looking beyond what is and visualizing what can be. the vision inside you will always shape the world around you. So when it comes to us connecting with our community, our young brothers, our young sisters, our kings, our queens, it's a matter of us looking beyond where we are now, even looking beyond the feudal things, right? Of course, the PS5, the Jordans, all of the things that people are often running to the stores to purchase. Is like, take that, invest in yourself, visualize something that's bigger and better than where you are now, put in the work, grind it out, and look where you can take your life.
Nice.
That's possibility. That's possibility. And that's something, as you can tell, I'm passionate about, right? I'm passionate about. I want to wake us up so we can see better possibilities. And as you see better possibilities, I see better possibilities, and we execute on them. Imagine the world that we can live in. Imagine our communities. Imagine the education system. Imagine the healthcare system. Imagine the technology sector. Imagine the things that we can create if we stop putting limits on what's possible.
Yeah,
it's like the sign on the back of that photo in your backdrop. Don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits.
Absolutely. We want to keep that visual going, and especially with the tying into this conversation. Now, have you gotten to the point or gotten into a situation where you've let's say just had a tough crowd? You're passionate about what you're doing. You have this message that you want to convey to somebody, but for whatever reason, the crowd is taking longer to connect with you. And I want to equate this to just any situation that any student might be in, where they're getting some momentum and they're doing all the right things, and they still come up to some kind of obstacle or some roadblock. What how was working through that process like? And then whether you did so in that moment or not, what was the reflection like afterwards so that you were able to move forward?
I haven't necessarily personally experienced not throwing an event, but speaking at an event and having like a tough crowd, quote unquote. Of course, there's been moments when it doesn't resonate with everyone. I'll give you an example of that. I spoke at this one event. This is early in my career as a speaker and in my business. And at the end of this event, they allow the attendees to do surveys. So I spoke at this event. There was a couple hundred people in the actual event, and they did surveys. And I'm very big on, okay, how can I improve? How can I develop? So I had the event planners send me the surveys. Let's say, for instance, there was 200 people in that room. I forget the exact number. 198 had positive, great reviews. Like, I loved it, really connected. It was those two. Those two was like, man, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. He said this and I didn't like that. We have this negativity bias, right? Where you got 198 people that was rocking with you, that really enjoyed it, that benefited from it. But my mind is going towards those two that's like, yo, they wouldn't feel, and it was really bugging me. It's really getting at me. And I had to step back and remind myself, like, David, you can't reach everybody. Count and celebrate the wins, the goods, the positives, what is working. Don't focus on what wasn't working or who didn't like it or who wasn't feeling it. Because as long as I stay focused on the negative, I'm always going to feel some type of way. But when I stay focused on the good, the positive, even if it's small, right? That's going to help me stay motivated, encouraged, and continue to move forward towards where I want to be. Again, even if it's those small steps, so that person that, like, you've been grinding, you've been hustling, you've been studying day in and day out, like you historically have had good grades, but then you get this one exam and then you fall short. Listen, bounce back, learn from it. Don't even bounce back, bounce forward, gain from that experience. You know what I mean? It's like the Euro step in basketball, right? When you're on the court, you got to step back to gain leverage to put the points on the board, right? So it helps you look at things from a different perspective when you take a step back, open up your mind to what this situation is telling you, what you can learn from this experience, and then put the points on the board in your life. Yeah, that's easier said than done, but it can be easier done than said if you have the right perspective.
Nice, nice. It's always a bigger picture than, kind of what happens in that moment. It's always bigger than those two naysayers in that pool
Right.
of, people who are really, really with what you were saying. So, and it's easy to get caught up on those people. It's easy to get caught up on that one comment, that somebody posts on social media or whatever, when there's 10,000s of, yo, this was really cool. This was
Yeah.
dope. You were really good at what you do. Keep it up. So thank you for pointing that out, that negative bias that we all tend to have, but we can conquer through. So,
Mhm.
David, you've definitely given us a lot of great information. I want to leave you with one other thing. If you were to go back, wherever that is, maybe it's your teenage self, maybe it was you as a preteen, maybe you were 9 years old. If you could go back and talk to that David, what would you say to him and why?
Your belief will always carry more power than your reality. And I would say that to me because one trap that I have had, and I've been overcoming this trap throughout my years, throughout me having a business, being an entrepreneur. Because I tell many people the best personal development course you can ever take is you starting a business, you pursuing your passion, you going after something that you really want because you force yourself to confront yourself, right? But I say that to say a lot of times, I know I'm not the only one in this category. We create beliefs of what we believe to be possible for ourselves. These beliefs are often limited. We place limits on our capabilities. We underestimate our potential. We overlook our greatness and what makes us amazing. And we have to understand that it's the beliefs of who we are. That's the driving force of our behavior. That's the essence of our existence. That's what dictates our life experience. Your behavior will always be consistent with the person that you identify with. So begin to upgrade your beliefs. If you want to upgrade your life, start with your belief system. Stop telling yourself you can't do certain things and convince yourself that you can. Stop feeling hopeless and helpless and instead tap into your personal power. And all of that starts with what you're saying to yourself, what you believe deep down within your core. And also understand the most important aspect of that is that you are in full control of your beliefs. Your life will shift. I want the college students, everybody listening to this, to get this. If you don't get anything else out of what we've talked about during this conversation, tie this into your memory bank. Like, type this into your phone. Remind yourself of this every single day. A shift in your life will take place the moment, I'm talking instantaneously, you consciously define yourself instead of allowing your past, your present, your problems, your pain, or your current predicament to do it for you. You making up your mind. You know what? I may not have all the money that I want to have in my bank account, but I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to live rich because it starts as a mindset. I may not have that white coat as a doctor right now. I may be living in the hood, but you know what? I'm going to climb out of this thing and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to walk across that stage. I'm going to be in the surgery room saving lives. I may not be in the courtroom representing my people because I know they're not getting a fair share in many cases. We want justice. But you know what? I'm going to make it through law school. I believe I'm going to make this happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking about looking beyond where you are now and making up your mind. I believe I can get there. I believe I can get there. That's what I would say to my younger self.
you have power over that narrative. I feel like that's really that overall theme, and that elevation that you speak of, and it can be powerful once you start to manifest those words, that mindset that you have. So definitely dope advice there. So David, I want to give us an opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about you, by asking a few fun questions, if you will. So we're in the age of the internet. Memes are king. What are your top 3 memes of all time?
I don't know if I have a top 3 like the memes. I know 2020 memes were crazy.
Yeah, to say the least.
I don't know if I have a top 3 meme, man. I'm not for sure. I mean, I love them all. Anything that makes me laugh.
Anything that
Anything
makes
that
you
makes
laugh?
me laugh.
Any one that stands out to you? First thought.
I can't even think of one right now. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You are all good. You are all good. It's I'm sure you'll think of it as soon as we stop.
Probably as soon as we clock out. Yeah.
No worries, no worries. All right. So now if you were to pick the food, the weather, and the attractions from 3 different places and create your own vacation spot, what would those 3 things and places be?
I wouldn't even pick them from 3 different spots, man. I said the perfect vacation spot is Aruba. Aruba. My wife and I, we travel there frequently. Actually, we went on our honeymoon when we first got married there, and then we go there frequently. But Aruba, laying out there on the beach, has some nice food, some great music, beautiful weather, sun shining, sunshine, blue skies. The weather's right around 85, 90, just fine and just perfect. And ain't a care in the world. That's the perfect vacation.
Perfect place. I'm gonna have to put that on my list.
Put it on the list, man. Put it on the list.
There you go. All right. Now, we always joke about, having your black card, doing things to, make sure that you're not having your black card revoked. Now, if this was a real thing, what experience would you say is something would kind of be on that list?
You have to have watched Coming to America.
Uh-huh.
You got to know somebody that knows how to make some fire barbecue.
Okay.
Another thing to have a black card. What you got to know how to do?
Yeah, or just experience.
Just an experience. If you don't know who everybody in them is, then you ain't got no black card.
You just need that one.
Yeah.
That one. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Best food in Indianapolis. What would you say that is?
Country Kitchen.
Country Kitchen.
Black owned joint out here, man. Unfortunately, a couple months back, the building, they had a building fire. So they were bouncing back from that. But hands down, when you're ever in the city, if you're in the city, look me up, connect with me. Let me know you tuned into this podcast. Selvin, if you're ever in Indianapolis, come connect with me. Once they get things back and going, hey, lunch is on me, brother. Come out here. It's not too far from my spot, actually. But again, it's black owned. Anybody that's been to Indianapolis, from Barack Obama, just anybody, they've been to Country Kitchen. I mean, you're talking about soul food to put hair on your chest, and ain't necessarily beneficial for your blood pressure, but you can enjoy yourself for a little bit, but it's good food.
Yeah. And indulge a little bit, live a little bit. There you go. And now, finally, with all the speaking experience that you've had, I'm sure that you've gravitated towards some of those speakers, maybe that you've even looked up to. Even if it's not a favorite, who would you say is a really influential speaker to you?
I love there's many speakers that I truly enjoy. But to answer your question, it will probably be one that you don't expect or listeners wouldn't expect. I will say most influential, Cassius Marcellus Clay, aka Muhammad Ali. I was a competitive boxer for about 12 years. And when I first started competing, I started to study the sport. And of course, I was attracted to Muhammad Ali's style. I would watch different clips on YouTube, and I would come across many of his speeches and interviews. And I was just drawn to the level of confidence that he had, right? Like the boldness to say what he said. When we talk about authenticity, like to be in the civil rights movement, literally, and just talking what he was talking, speaking truth to power and doing it unapologetically. And when being interviewed about fights, just speaking confidently, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, your fist can't hit what your eyes can't see, rumble, young man, rumble. The energy that he would bring every single time the cameras were rolling, the microphone was on, or he was in front of a stage or in front of an audience was very respectable. And the energy was very contagious, right? And I love that, right? Because that's what connects with people, man. When you are yourself and you're speaking your truth, even when You're being met with opposition and people don't believe in it. Ali, man, that dude right there still inspires me to this day after his death. His quotes, his life, the legacy, his fights, the confidence that he had, the courage that he had, the game-changing aspects of the boxing world, as well as just the world that we live in. He's a complete game changer. So to answer your question, Muhammad Ali, again, AKA Cassius Marcellus Clay.
Perfect. Yeah, that energy is definitely different. It still translates even if you're watching it on YouTube, right? So, yeah. That's definitely dope. Well, David, this has been an awesome conversation. I truly appreciate your time. Anything that you want to leave for our listeners? Anything that you want to promote? I'm gonna give you the floor. All right.
Well, listeners, you guys can connect with me. My website is elevationismust.com. I've got free resources and content available on the website. So again, check that out. Connect with me on social media at @1 Gibson. That includes Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram, youtube.com/David Gibson. Connecting on those platforms, I also have a daily broadcast that launches. We'll be back at it within the next couple of weeks. We're going through some things right now as far as getting some reformatting done with our studio. But we have a daily broadcast that goes live every morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, essentially helping you win the day. I'm a firm believer that if you can win the morning, you can win the day. So there's some exercises that we do every single morning with gratitude. The community that we have of people that connect on a daily basis brings that positive energy. And then I deliver a short message that helps you stay focused and determined as you're working towards your goals and your dreams for that particular day. So be sure to connect again at @1 Gibson. That's pretty much on all platforms.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, David. This has been great to really kind of talk through all of your experiences and what you have for the people. And I want to say thanks to everybody for listening. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's @InQuire Hire. And we also have InQuireHire.com. So until next time, peace.